both we on the board and the Housing Authority are also looking for closure to this issue and a possible resolution that might satisfy the community in many different ways. That it's worth exploring the option of getting an appraisal and finding out the value of the property. There are other legal issues that still need to be addressed, but we can't get to them if we don't find out what this is really going to cost. We've done the analysis in terms of building a full-blown park. I don't know if that's the answer. It doesn't necessarily mean, though, that something can't happen there. And so I do know that the Housing Authority can't simply turn around and donate this property. And they have a fiduciary obligation that they have to meet. They made that clear to us. And in fact, if they didn't make that clear to us, we would make it clear to them. Our job is to make sure they meet their fiduciary obligations. They are, however, open to the recommendation by the councilwoman to have this property appraised and see if there might be some way to address their needs. And sometimes money talks, and if they have resources to do things that they want to do in other areas of the town, that might solve some of their problems. And so I think this is a positive step. I'm open to it. I think the board as a whole is looking for a solution. I thank the councilwoman for looking for answers, and this recommendation seems to make sense. So I recommend that support this time.
And I do appreciate that the board is supportive of this. I have met with the supervisor several times. We've talked about a lot of different things. You know, we don't always agree on everything, but we do agree that we need to try to resolve this in the best way possible for the community. So I obviously do think that it should be a park. I don't know that that's my goal, and I'm going to try to achieve that. But there still are issues that we have to deal with. But getting the appraisal is the first step. So we've all been here a long time, and I do want to give the people that have given me cards the opportunity to speak. Karen Walker.
Karen's coming up. I just want to again remind everybody that in light of the fact that we are of the same mind for this resolution, and I think that each individual here has been polled by the councilwoman, and we do have a sense of how this is going to go and that there's support for it. One doesn't need to persuade us to vote for it, and if that saves a little time, that would be good.
Well said.
Hi.
Yeah, yes.
Just full attention is always good. I did want to kill us. Good evening. Karen Walker. My address is 4G Bay Green Lane, Port Washington, New York, 11050. In lieu of what you were saying, and thank you again for being such an adamant fighter for our community, considering that I think at times our community seems to be ostracized from the rest of Port Washington at times. And I appreciate you being the bridge for all of Port Washington to consider Port as one community. That being said, it still seems like to be like a David and Goliath type of situation, the haves against the have-nots. Being economically challenged seems to be like a punishment for the residents of Harbor Homes, as opposed to it being something that could be advantageous for Port Washington, again, quote unquote, as a whole. The people, the residents of Harbor Homes, I'm not a resident of Harbor Homes, but my mother is, and I certainly was at one time, certainly have utilized it when it was a park. I wish that the initiatives, as you say, could go quicker, but I think a lot of times when you're left in the dark regarding things and not the whole entire community's abreast and brought up to speed makes it more difficult for us to be as patient. And considering I know patience is what you're asking us to have, very difficult in the circumstances, because we've been basically begging and pleading for something that seems quite obviously it's something for us to do. It's a place where children can play, a place that can accommodate all of Port Washington. I think that there could be definitely an economic boost for Port Washington, because you could have tournaments there. There are a lot of things that you could build off this. That being said, don't understand why North Hempstead Housing Authority is so grudgingly not really wanting to cooperate, and only their best interest seems to be the dollar bill. And I'm saying this is a green issue. It's not an environmental one. It's a dollar bill issue. It's a green issue based upon money and how they would benefit, basically financially. So my question is to you: in the event that they definitely, like you said, not going to donate the property, the money that they would get from it, what are they going to do with it? I mean, is it what is it going to propose? Are they going to do more renovations to Harbor Homes? How's that going to work? That's what I'm asking.
The Housing Authority has a mission which is to provide housing, and housing for folks in our communities, community in the larger sense, the town of North Hempstead, is limited for those who have economic challenges. It's not an easy place to live if you can't afford it. And so they're struggling, they've been struggling for decades, because as they try to meet their burden, I can tell you that state funding and federal funding and county funding has diminished.
You don't have to tell me I'm a county worker, so I definitely know.
So that's, they're not looking to make profits, they're not looking to the dollar sign is important to them because they have an obligation to make sure people's quality of life and dignity in the homes that they live in are at the level that we all wish it to be. And so, because they have this obligation, fiduciary obligation, this financial obligation imposed on them by the town, by the state, and by the federal government, some of the other facilities, they have to, one, use their property to fill their mission. They're not allowed to simply do things for they can't take the money and donate it to some charity. That's just not appropriate. So they need to be constantly aware of their obligations, liability issues. I would suggest that this is one of the concerns that they have, even with this property. But if they can acquire dollars to meet their mission in other ways, then they would be meeting their obligation. And I think they were open to that discussion, which is the first time we've circled around that concept. And again, I think the councilwoman did kind of bring this around to this position, and we appreciate her efforts on this. But it is, I wouldn't want to diminish the Housing Authority for trying to do their job. And I don't think they're the bad guys here. I think they're simply people who are trying to meet their job. Their job is to try to find housing. They had an idea. It came out about a year ago, whenever it was. Met with stiff opposition on different grounds from different communities. And if there's a way to find a solution to this and for them to still do their job, then that would be a win-win for everybody.
Forgive me, I mean, not from different communities, it was the community at large. It wasn't different communities because, again, we want to always incorporate Harbor Homes. They are the community, and they are Port Washington.
I meant different communities. The Housing Authority has different communities in the town, such as Westbury, Great Neck, Manhasset. Exactly. They have different facilities throughout the town. So their obligation is from different communities as well.
But my last point was like accommodations are definitely made for certain Port Washington community residents. The skateboarders were given place to skateboard. Yeah. Manor Haven Park is a distance, like we had said from the very beginning when we first came to the board. Forgive me for not addressing everyone.
It's okay.
We did.
Okay,
I'm just saying that.
No,
so I want to be respectful. We did that, and it seems like our youth continually are invisible to the rest of the community. It can't be that way. We want to try to accommodate everyone, and I'm sure idealistically we would like to accommodate everybody, but I think this accommodation is not something that could be very difficult. The initiatives may be difficult because we're talking about paperwork and we're talking about, as you said, I guess, positions that people have. But as far as the residents of Harbor Homes, we don't want to be dismissed. We continue to want our voices to be heard. And at times, I again appreciate and applaud your very efforts because I'm sure it takes a lot of time. And I know that you've been in different communication with our president.
Right, with
yes, correct. So that being said, please, before I leave, is that we don't continue want to be an ostracized community. We want to be considered at whole. And it would be a park not just for the residents of Harbor Homes, but Port Washington at large. That's the whole point. Continue, please, to be the bridge for us, and so that we continue to have a voice for Harbor Homes, but for Port Washington as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Supervisor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Dave Franklin. I live at 86 Fairview Avenue, Port Washington, New York. I am a commissioner of the Police District of Port Washington. As such, my main concern is safety. All right, the main roads that are around the area of Harbor Homes are Port Washington Boulevard and Harbor Road, which is a major thoroughfare for people cutting down to Shore Road. We have a lot of trucks that are making deliveries there and whatnot. It's a very popular road, and it's certainly not a place for children to play. Okay. Kids play in the street, but that's not a good place to play either. We've got an oasis there that we can take advantage of, all right? It's a park that can be beautifully used. I don't know where you grew up. I grew up in Jersey City. We played in the streets. played football, he ran into cars, and
Okay.
it wasn't pretty for the cars.